Good day, everyone. Juxtaposition here. Today I wanted to discuss an interview I did with Sean Stone, the son of Oliver Stone. Did that interview in February 2022, earlier this year, and I've sort of had it in the library. I thought I would repost it for your entertainment. It's a 78-minute interview that Sean conducted with me. And I did ask him in advance for some outline notes as to the topics we'd be discussing, and he did. We were going to discuss private banking, money laundering, but when he hit the green light and began recording, he flipped the topic to conspiracies. And when I realized that we were really in a clandestine service-driven simulated world of fake news and nefarious activities. And I did try to explain to Sean that there was no single conspiracy that lit the light bright in my mind, that it was a process. And I did say that right out of the gate. I said it's a 50-plus year process, and it's still ongoing, it's still underway, because so much is hidden from us. So much truth is censored, deleted, ignored, destroyed, hidden. So wanted to make it real crystal clear that for me, it began with the John Kennedy assassination, as I was aware. I was 5 years old at the time, and I was aware of it. And then later I became a paper boy in the San Francisco Bay Area, where we had all manner of Operation Chaos, amphetamines research project going on out of Haight-Ashbury, San Francisco, which was run concurrently with the anti-draft conscription movement, peace movement, which the media renamed the Peace Rioters at University of California, Berkeley, on Adeline and Telegraph and Shattuck Avenues. I was keenly aware of that. I visited, Telegraph Avenue. I had a concrete brick land at my foot, when I'm 9 years old. And I'm very keenly aware of that. Plus, I had friends all over the neighborhood who had older brothers who were wrapped up in the draft and Vietnam. So I was not at all unaware of the social injustice and social concerns. And I was very crystal clear that the right of public assembly was always challenged. I can assure you that no authority system is going to tolerate free assembly. They're not going to tolerate free elections either. Of course not. We don't have free elections. We have rigged elections. There's no reason to register to vote. You're volunteering for cancer when you do that. Just more data you're turning over to the government, aka the banks. Because I think if you see my videos, you'll realize we don't have a government. We have bank authority, and they hide behind the Wizard of Oz curtain, which is known as the government authority. But since the government's insolvent, they're impotent. And if the government's impotent, what are they really? Well, they're a facade. They're the Moloch Owl face. Anyway, when I continued on in this interview with Sean Stone, you'll see that he really wanted to talk about cult rituals, especially with respect to the Bohemian Grove, which of course they typically do have cult rituals in the Grove. Everyone knows about the crazy weekend and the last 2 weeks of July, which is it follows the hijinks clubhouse parties that they have, which I've personally attended. And then they have this Moloch Owl cremation of care ceremony that the public seems to be aware of, because Alex Jones went on the property, snuck onto the property, and videotaped some of it. But that's a truthful story, and I personally have been to the Moloch Owl. It's a 40-foot concrete fireplace, effectively, and they can light a fire in the base of it, and then put inflammatory chemicals on the fire and blow out the flames through the eyeballs of the owl. The owl also has a layer of moss or growth on it. It's on a bluff over the Russian River near the town of Monterey and facing toward Guerneville. Actually, it's close to the municipal golf course outside the town of Guerneville. And it's there in plain view. It's set back from the river. It's set back on the bluff. So if you were canoeing or kayaking on the river, in theory, you could see the Moloch Owl. However, it's well camouflaged and hidden in the open, and it's very difficult to know it's there unless you knew it was there and you knew the exact coordinates. You can attempt to go hike up to the Owl. It's a steep bluff. However, there are surveillance cameras in every direction on both sides of the rivers, and there are specific cabins across the way that I believe are associated with the Grove as part of their security system, because they have a lock gate over there, and everywhere else in the Guerneville area is wide open. So whenever I see lock gates with expensive steel, I immediately know clandestine services are involved. And that's what's going on at the Grove, which is supposed to be 2,700 acres of rainforest redwood trees and multiple assembly places where people can give speeches, give lectures, and 112 cabins, or what they call camps. You know, I'm familiar with the Sons of Toil and Romandy and the Hollyroods, or whatever they call the Hollyroods, and I don't know all the names. I knew about a dozen different campsites. Obviously, there's far more campsites than I'm familiar with. And I've also been to the grand dining area, which is in an amphitheater created area by cutting down some redwood trees and building a stage through a series of terraces, not unlike Cielo Drive properties, which is 8 houses, by the way. So when you think of the Sharon Tate murder, always think in terms of that there were 8 homes, and only one of the 8 homes was used to murder people, but there were 7 other homes. One home was used to have a 19-year-old dog sitter who was not harmed, and 3 dogs that didn't bark, and keep them safe. And then I believe there are 6 homes available for the murderers to take showers and stage and sharpen their bayonets. So you're talking about a killing complex, military style. Anyway, just because things look like they're rainforests and that they're pretty and it's like an Alice in Wonderland show doesn't necessarily mean they're not sophisticated, structured military complexes. I was told by a member of the club that they've slaughtered thousands of people on the stage of the Bohemian Grove supper location. Forget what it's called. The dining area that has acetylene gas powered candle operas on picnic tables. So it's sort of like the Boy Scouts on steroids. And there's no women allowed, so the whole thing is kind of falls under the creepy crawler category as far as I was concerned, and I am still concerned about it. Anyway, Sean wanted to get into that, and I didn't want to get into that because that's a 40-hour conversation, and we didn't discuss it in advance. But you can enjoy the interview. This was before I knew that Oliver Stone, Sean's father, had actually participated in a cult ritual of his own, in that somebody tapped him on the shoulder and required him to go visit Timothy Leary, this lifelong CIA soldier, LSD maven from University of California, Berkeley, PhD in psychology, and of course department status of psilocybin and electroshock treatments for Harvard University in Cambridge, and then later had to be terminated for restructuring one of their students' brains, and then he was immediately sent to Millbrook in the Hudson Valley, where he repeated the same experiments that he did at Harvard with Richard Albert, a Stanford PhD professor, and they just took their show of LSD and mushrooms, and they just moved it from Cambridge, Massachusetts, over to New York, Hudson Valley, and then performed it in the Alfred Hitchcock 64-room estate there until that whack job from the FBI, trying to think of his name. We all know him from his television talk show appearances. One of the burglars who was arrested in the CIA Watergate staged fake burglary, one of 3 burglaries. We only know about one, but there were 2 others that we don't talk about. And we're talking about G. Gordon Liddy, right? G. Gordon Liddy was the FBI officer who arrested Timothy Leary at the Millbrook Institute at the Alfred Hitchcock estate in the mid-70s. And then, of course, he wasn't incarcerated or anything, and charges were eventually dropped. And Timothy Leary appears in San Francisco, in Haight-Ashbury, working with Abigail Folger's mother, Enos Mejia, who undoubtedly pays him his salary or coordinates his grant funding from Yale and Stanford universities. because that's another form of money laundering. I tried to explain to Sean Stone, who wanted to say that my expertise is following the money. But I'm here to tell you that if you money launder correctly, you cannot follow the money. I don't care if you're a CPA or you're a neuroscientist, you can't follow the money. That's the whole point. However, you can follow bankers, and you can know where bankers go and what country clubs they belong to and what zip codes they tend to hang out with and which airports they frequent, what type of private jets they use. That's actually fairly easy to determine, and anyone in the public can figure that out. So the thing about bankers is that most of what they do is private, but they themselves are not private at all. So my advice to bankers is you should shelter in place, wear 6 or 7 face diapers, don't leave your home, and just pray to God that your electricity doesn't go out, because then your Zoom camera will go dark. All right, well, anyway, that's what my point was to Sean, but I didn't realize that his father was required to go visit Timothy Leary and give him a get well card on St. Patrick's Day, Sunday, March 17th, 1996. Sean Stone's father had to go to the site of the Sharon Tate, Abigail Folger bayonet murder and visit Timothy Leary, who was going to die in about 2 months. He died on May 31st, I believe, 1996. William Colby, who was the same age as Timothy Leary, was murdered literally 30 days after Oliver Stone visited Timothy Leary at Cielo Drive. Well, the address that he visited was 10106 Sunbrook Drive. That's 30 seconds from where the pool house is, or was, where Abigail Folger was bayoneted 28 times. Oliver Stone had to go just a few hundred feet away from that GPS location to visit Timothy Leary, along with other Hollywood actors and directors and producers who had to pay tribute to an enemy of the public. I mean, I consider Timothy Leary a complete enemy. I mean, he's destroyed lives. He uses drugs and electroshock treatments to experiment on human beings. I mean, you put him in with Dr. Fauci in a unpadded concrete closet, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, that's who Oliver Stone needed to go visit, because you know what? He can't get his movies distributed unless he obeys. It's an obedience ritual. That's what that is. If somebody tells you to go visit Timothy Leary, or to go give a birthday card to Anthony Fauci, or to wear a face diaper, okay, or get a PCR test, which is a DNA collections procedures from CETUS, which has created it. It's nothing to do with if you have the influenza. Then no, it doesn't have to test you for that. But so they've conned the public into thinking the PCR test is some kind of a COVID test, which it's not. It's collecting your DNA and it's going into a database, okay? So if you want to voluntarily, continuously donate your DNA, go right ahead. I think that's very foolish. But my point is that Oliver Stone needs to obey, or else his documentaries and his JFK film can't be distributed, because it doesn't make any difference where you get the money to pay your salaries of your Tommy Lee Jones or your Kevin Costner. That's not the point. The point is, can you get it distributed? Look, I can create content on a shoestring budget. I don't need tens of millions of dollars to make a film. I don't require that. But you know what? I can't get my stuff on YouTube. They delete me within 48 hours. So how come Oliver Stone gets distribution status and I don't? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because I don't attend the cremation of care ceremony, and I don't visit LSD mavens in the Benedict Canyon at a murder site of a NATO M7 bayonet attack. So because I don't participate in that ritual, my content is suppressed. Get it? Now, hopefully, Sean Stone will put that together at some point. Perhaps he already has. But he didn't bring it up when we had our conversation. So I don't know if he knew about his father's visit with Timothy Leary, who's a well-known CIA agent for his entire career, till he died at age 76, which is kind of young. That's the age that William Colby was murdered. And I think Timothy Leary was 75, and that William Colby was 76. I know William Colby was about 9 or 10 months older than Leary, and they died within 30 days of each other. So let's call Timothy Leary 75 years old when he died at 10106 Sunbrook Drive. On the death certificate, it reads 10106 Sunbrook Avenue. Now that's a clue, people, because there are no avenues in Benedict Canyon, none. So why would you type that on the Los Angeles County medical exam death certificate? But that's what they did. It's to throw you off. It's like calling the murder scene Cielo Drive when it's really on Bella Drive. But it's right above Sunbrook. So if you had to pick a name for the murder site, I would pick Sunbrook, which is a cul-de-sac. It's a court, and that's deliberately on purpose, so there's no through traffic. It's private. There's no sidewalks. There's no through traffic, and like I said, there's 6 staging homes between Cielo Drive and Sunbrook Drive, which is on one terrace that was excavated and bulldozed in 1942. And there it is, right there, and it's right below the murder house, which everybody thinks is 10050 Cielo Drive, where Jeffrey Franklin now lives, the producer of Full House, which is where Bob Saget was employed before he had his head knocked up and died on January 9, 2022. Which we didn't discuss that in this video. Anyway, that's my thoughts on today. Check out the video. Let me know your feelings. It should stand up well. Just remember, I'm not working from notes. It was a complete free-flowing interview, and I actually was back on my heels a few times. All right, take care. Hit the like and subscribe if you haven't already. Take care. Have a good day.